going. Hello.
All right. Hello. Welcome.
I mean, do I? I
Yeah,
don't know.
you're on the show. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me, DK. It's been a long time coming. Like 2 minutes ago, hopping on it. So.
Right, right. Well, I saw you tweeted like 4 hours ago, and you were looking for
Mhm.
podcast, some sort of software podcast solution. I was wondering, kind of, I've actually been playing with a lot of tools myself and some hardware and stuff, and kind of getting it all together. So I was wondering, if maybe I could help in one way or another. If you want to play around with this and see what this is like, or
Actually,
we can
this is
talk about what you're trying
perfect
to
because
accomplish.
someone mentioned this already. So I
Hmm.
saw the screenshots, but I was like caught up in other things, so didn't get to try it. But this is the best one that I've tried so far on any podcast and whatever. Usually it's like some plugin on Zoom or something
Yeah.
else that is kind of like over the top.
Right.
So this one feels more optimized for just on the go swing by conversations that like record things in high quality. And the context of the original tweet that I did was basically you know the TLDR intro that I do to connect entrepreneurs to investors that I
Hmm.
know. So the list is like over 100 people. So like I have enough people to just kind of like invite a couple times a week on both founder and investor sides
Hmm.
to basically talk about anything.
Yeah.
But on second thought, I thought like anything is too broad.
Yeah.
I want to make it like short and sweet, not like an hour long thing. I'm not that extroverted, so I can't handle it. So
Right.
wanted to do like some like quick things. For example, like first 1,000 as a newsletter is one of my favorites. Like, oh, how did you get your first 100 users? It's like,
Hmm.
oh, how did you hit your first jackpot to an investor or
Right.
something?
Right. Is
I
that
was
is that an
thinking,
existing
okay.
newsletter? The first 100,
First 1,000. Yeah, yeah, it's one
first
of my
1,000.
favorite. Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
basically it's like got like a lot of different products like Discord, Reddit, and especially a lot of consumer social ones. And I enjoy that newsletter. Sometimes I miss out on some, but basically, with Perl, I've been just gathering all this different content from custom URLs and
Yeah.
websites, as well as stuff people say on Twitter and Farcaster.
Hmm.
Basically with that podcast project that I was thinking of, I would just go and do like 10 to 15-minute recording of each investor and founder. I can a founder I can just get on the show
Hmm.
and turn them into like podcast series that I can pearl and
Hmm.
turn into a list that is collectible and that is collectible and social in general because like if you just have a website and list all your episodes and the most users can do is to just copy the URL and share.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on Pearl, it's like each thing you say becomes an element to mingle with us. So we just launched this huge feed where it shows real time what DK just saved something.
Mm.
Alex just saved created another collection.
Right.
David is adding to it or new person coming. So that we're in the process of really pushing Pearl towards a social and multiplayer mode because so
Hmm.
far what we've been focusing on is just the method of saving and organizing. So that was the whole context behind the simple tweet. I
Right.
wouldn't do a podcast host just for fun because I'm not like that extroverted. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
But it sounds like the so tell me more about the I think I've seen you tweet about the TLDR list, but I don't know all of what it contains. Was it mostly founders and investors for kind of very early stage things?
Yeah, so TLDR intro is pretty simple. Like there were a lot of founders like Ziki Chan, like Ryan Hoover when I was starting out, like who just introduced me to a lot of investors for
Hmm.
no cost, just paying it forward as a
Yep.
culture. So initially I was just kind of mimicking them, like doing the same. But then like some investors on the list were like, "Oh, have you ever thought about turning it into a real fund and everything?" But then
Mm.
I'm not a fan of founders like doing two very real things involving like other people's money. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
spend a lot of other people's money right now with Pearl. So
Hmm.
I want to make sure that I nail this one
Yeah.
before I formalize anything on the other side. So where I kept the scope of TLDR intros is basically it's like a mailing list of 120 investors currently counting that
Hmm.
I've met, whether online or in person to varying degrees, but I've all verified their investment range and
Yeah.
check size and all that. So I just send a warm intro from including the founder information and their deck if they have one,
Hmm.
and just say, hey, if you're interested, just say yes. And if they say yes, I don't even do this like lengthy little like details. I just say that and like, hey, DK, meet Lightspeed and enjoy, like,
Right,
so
right, right.
really, really simple to do it. So like I spend less than 30 minutes a week just sending out that email when there is a very solid intro. So
Right.
it's my way of like preserving my relationship with investors that didn't necessarily like invest in Pearl.
Hmm.
So those people likely won't get like same detail and fidelity of information from
Right.
me. But you know, just I don't like meeting external investors in a one-off way just to catch up and drink coffee. I think it's a waste of time, even though I can small talk. So instead of doing those empty, like superficial meetings, I sort of came up with the TLDR intro as a way to like keep my relationship with them warm
Right.
until it's season to fundraise again, because
Right.
this is a relationship where I'm basically doing them a huge favor of sending very high quality founders, not just random cold DMs,
So you're curating both sides of it. You're curating which investors are there and which founders.
Exactly. And the founders, like I have my so I only intro founders that I would consider investing in, like myself,
So have you already met the founder, kind of done a little bit of, you heard their pitch, you know a bit of diligence about them?
Yeah, so most of them I do, and some of them I just get the DM, and then they send me the blurb and deck they would to like I just like copy paste it and send it to
Hmm.
investors. So I look at it, and if it's too shitty, I don't.
Hmm.
And if I look at it and I'm blown away, I say so in the email. If I'm like
Right.
kind of average, like here's another one, like take it if you want. Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
actually selfishly really like making my time the most like valuable asset on the frontier, as in like
Hmm.
I really don't want to do it, to be honest, if it takes like too much time from me, because I
But
just have
everybody who's there is opted in. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, everybody
Everybody's
on.
like, whatever you want to send me, you can send me. I trust you, Alex. That's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of the
exactly,
commitment.
it's like that. So me, I'm the mid filter on both sides of the market,
Hmm.
and I was thinking about doing it with a couple friends and whatnot, but then it's like for the same reason that I want to keep our current team at Pearl small, which is
Yeah.
just me and Peter just building everything. Um, is just decisions and like caveats and flexibilities. Dealing with that gets like just exponentially harder. So
Hmm.
for us, for example, you and me coming on the call, it kind of happens spontaneously, and I've met you many times, like for a long time,
Hmm.
So those are like easier to coordinate, but it's like, oh, let's talk to DK, but then there's like five people on my end. They're like, who do we talk?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Available. I
So
don't like
painful.
coordinating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Makes
keeping
sense.
it simple with just myself has
Right.
like allowed me to actually continue it, because otherwise I think I'm very good at chopping stuff. If something doesn't take off like as a small like experiment, I just for example NASA, the not another social app,
Hmm.
I know it's like still group chat kind of going on, but then it didn't have like something like special for me yet, so I just couldn't see myself spending too much time on it yet. But
Right.
for things like TLDR intro that is actually bringing value to me and
Hmm.
others involved at scale,
Yeah.
so those are the things I can afford to do as a full-time founder in terms
Right.
of
Makes sense.
time availability. So
I
yeah.
I have a question for you on the full-time founder thing, because you had described that you're interested in focusing all your attention on Pearl, and you don't want to get distracted with, making investor connections or maybe doing a podcast or something, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but actually, I would sort of push back on that, and I want to ask you:
Yeah, yeah.
are you sure that doing something like a podcast, even if it's not a formal thing, are you
Hmm.
sure that that can't be helpful for Pearl?
That can't be or can or
Well, I'm asking, do you want to? Have you explored? Would it help Pearl possibly to do almost like a Pearl focused podcast?
oh yeah, that is possible too. It was just like I really honestly didn't have much plan when I asked, so I basically unfiltered just asked a question
Hmm.
until I
Yeah.
decided, right? So I mean, about Pearl is I don't want to come off too like promotional, but if the
Hmm.
product is like actually getting somewhere and there are like topical interests and clusters already forming, just like back in the
Right.
delicious days,
Yeah.
so it'd be more natural to have almost like a micro book club, so to speak, on by community like in the future. Uh,
Right.
right now we just do like a whole group of like a Zoom call on a weekly as a community call. I just do that for an hour on Friday, but that's only about Perl, right? So turning that into a podcast like is a little like more friction.
Is that like the features of Perl that you're discussing, or
No,
more
no,
like
no.
what
Oh, yeah, I mean,
content
so,
showed up on Perl? Or
basically, yeah, it's very just like casual, but basically what
Mhm.
we do is like, oh, how are you using Perl? And here are the things we are like planning to make and show some mock-ups and raw thoughts on like
Right.
Figma Live and also show demos of like product features that we may decide to chop or ship, you know?
Hmm.
So
Right.
people like,
So it's not kind of a product focused, feedback
yeah, it's very
focused
product
session kind of.
focused one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I
So,
guess what I'm wondering out
yeah,
loud, and I'm just sort of brainstorming, right? So like I don't
yeah.
know if it's useful,
Mhm.
but I think actually, did you see this tweet? I actually made it into a TikTok. This tweet from Greg Eisenberg the other day about the short form video. Did you
Oh,
see
I
this
don't
one?
think
Do
I've
you want to
seen
talk
it.
about
Yeah.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I made a TikTok about it. I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know if I've shared any of my TikToks with you, but I've been
Yeah. Yeah.
making some TikToks, and let me just pull up the Greg Eisenberg one, and we can look at it.
He's the island guy from before, right?
Yeah, I don't know how I know him. I think we met many, many years ago. Actually, I don't have a good way to pull it up right now. But the short of it was he was sort of talking about how in the past you would like build a product and then you would sort of get it into people's hands. And then that was sort of like the traditional way. And he's saying like now all products should be like first start with short form video to like explain the product and inspire the audience and gather people. Then do short form video plus a newsletter, then short form video plus a newsletter plus a paid community or plus a free community plus a paid community, then finally plus a product. And so he kind of is proposing this sort of alternative or inverted way of creating media first that would attract the audience that you want before before you write like a line of code. And I know that's certainly not the traditional way, and it's not necessarily the way you've gone about so far. But I wonder, like, does it inspire any new opportunities to sort of think about how your building process works? So for example, I guess inside Perl,
Yeah, yeah.
I guess there's all kinds of people every day curating interesting things, and maybe some of it is like timely or relevant. So could you actually take like everything that happens on Perl and just do like a daily 5-10 minute short form video or podcast or interview where you kind of tell what's happening on Perl right now, what's happening on Perl today, right?
Yeah,
Would that be
yeah,
interesting? Or
yeah, I think that'd be interesting. Like, there's always something happening, and it's sometimes it's about product, sometimes it's about like just the company and the journey itself. Like, for
Mhm.
example, like yesterday I was having some like doubts about like certain direction of it, and then meeting with my co-founder in person. He actually like moved to LA Koreatown to like work in person with me, so we sorted everything out just one by one and everything,
Mhm.
and then discussing at length like what actually went down in the like I'm just a fan of building in public.
Yeah.
And just to get back to that Eisenberg's point about like creating audience first before you actually write a single line of code is very wise, as in like that's exactly what I do too. I just
Mhm.
haven't like written anything about it, but basically my process of usually building a product, especially because I'm a consumer social specialist and I only have done that really as
Yep.
startups. I think like whether people vibe with it or not is much easier to gauge, like just as a concept. So he's saying like video first and newsletter in like a more templated way, but I think every product has its own special like path of creating the
Right.
audience. It might be from like writing, it might be from video, might be photo. What if it's
Yep.
a community for photographers? So I think depending on your weapon of choice, you can go to market differently. But one thing I do heavily agree is just creating audience like before you even start. So
Mhm.
I've raised pre-seed rounds, like pre-product, pre-team, just me before, with just like a simple landing page experiment where I have super high fidelity mock-up of the app and say coming soon, and then a couple lines of like pitch about the product, and then
Yep.
if I spend like let's say $50 on Facebook ads to the right targeted cohorts, if the conversion numbers come strong enough,
Mhm.
it's like it's like it's it's necessary for investors to kind of see, oh, does this one have legs? But it's actually more important for me because okay, I'm about to go balls deep, like spend minimum of months on this thing full time.
Mhm.
Like, am I convinced? So like
Right.
if there are people already there, it's like a way to motivate myself and the team.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Perl, and you've probably seen before Perl, I did like tiny homepage too. My like beginning of the product life cycle to launch,
Mm-hmm.
basically it's like I spend 99% of time in the beginning on actually just doing the audience building. It can be a Twitter page, or it can be
Mm-hmm.
a website, like depending on what it is, TikTok, you know. Um, and 1% of time actually building,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yep.
design, like and all that. And then as I get closer to the launch, that gets flipped, you know. But it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to get it flipped because by the time you arrive here, you have the audience that just self-sustains. And I mean, same story with Pearl. Like we didn't even have the product when I first like started talking about it, except for like mock-ups. But me and my co-founder Peter, like he's like really good at coding and also very design savvy in terms of like taste too. So
Mm-hmm.
if I have some sort of loose mock-up, he can go and build. So like the only reason we got to start Pearl back in like August, and then as soon as I joined, I started fundraising without the product, and
Mm-hmm.
we raised within like 6 weeks time frame. And
Mm-hmm.
as we like, how fundraising is so all consuming. You know, I
Yeah.
couldn't have done it like all alone, as in we divided and conquered, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
while I was creating the audience, like in this case, during fundraising mode, like including investors, right? So
Mm-hmm.
investors and customers in that case was kind of bulked up together. And
Yeah.
while I was doing that, Peter was building the actual product. So I was able to DV up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we always tell ourselves that like coding isn't the only way to build a product, like or
Right.
designing. It's like sometimes we just gotta think it out and talk to people and see if they want something like this to just motivate ourselves and give us a mental carrot
Yeah.
to run towards rather than just building. Because I kind of got tired of building for the sake of building on
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
my early like 20 days, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Right.
want to be more efficient. Yeah.
And where did you build the first audience for Pearl?
Oh, Twitter and especially Farcaster. Actually, Farcaster was critical for me because I first got in because Dan invited me over DM or I DM'd him or he DM'd. Anyway, he's just all over that pirate PFP
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I got into Farcaster and actually met Peter through Farcaster and started just babbling a lot as I do on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And we built the entire audience initially on Farcaster. And as a matter of fact, like it was Farcaster exclusive at first,
Mm.
and we got to raise through Dan invested, and we haven't made the public announcements yet about who invested, but I can tell you separately. But of course, but just over like around 50% of the cap table actually came directly and indirectly through Farcaster. So
Mm-hmm.
big shout out to them.
Yeah.
They're
Nice.
loyal to their platform too. Just wherever I feel comfy with, because TikTok, I'm not the type to like put on a show much. I'm not that good at it. I get a little awkward, and so it's basically like the same thing as like engineers before starting to build, talking about like what language to use, and
Mm-hmm.
my go-to rule is usually like unless it's very specific, you can't do like Java on like iPhone, you know. So
Right.
you have to do that mental model like first. But then if they want to choose like between like Python, Ruby, and like whatever, you know, then it's like whatever you're comfy with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you're already well versed, because me trying to acclimate myself to something totally new or where I don't already have an audience is
Right.
it's gonna take more time. So I like choosing maximum of two channels to build an audience from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. And then, so you were talking about this podcast project. Do you have something in mind of kind of exactly what you want to do?
Um, I don't. It's probably gonna be something like similar to this, where I'm just like a role switch and I'm the one asking like the right questions like you
Mm-hmm.
do. Um,
Yep.
but honestly, I don't know when I would because I'm just really busy enough on the product side and like spending the time with the actual users of Pearl for now. But I'm sure once we make some more progress on the product, I'll be more externally facing some of the voice and the messages or sharing of what's going into building the Pearl. So I'm happy to like attend these podcasts as a guest. But as a host, it's like a different level of commitment, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
just want to choose carefully on like what I commit to versus not, you know. So
Right.
this has been like super enjoyable, and I love like just hopping on stuff with people I've met before, especially.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
A little bit of context, and yeah, it's good.
yeah, yeah. I've known you
Cool.
way back from like my 1 minute days, which is
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Serial, and like you had a lot of good things to say, and your name's kind of unique too. Like King is a hell of a lot. So I'm just like, I've seen this guy before on Twitter. I'm just, wait, you're the guy who just gave me a very polite and straight no that ended up being right, you know? So I was like, connect again. Yeah. So I love meeting and keeping in touch with founders over several company cycles.
Yeah.
Like, so I think you're one of those categories for me, you know? So was
Yeah.
happy to hop on last minute too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to catch up. I know you were kind of running short on time, but it was nice of you to make the time to drop by and hang and catch up a little bit.
Yeah,
And let me
sounds
know if you're thinking about doing a podcast or something. I'm kind of learning it all myself right now too, so
Yeah,
happy
I
to
mean
trade notes and stuff.
Riverside one, like this experience has been really good so far for me. And if I mean I have no problem like posting it or not. So if you want to post it,
Okay.
like let me in, happy to. And then I actually wonder what the output looks like. So this is
Yeah.
like half of the pilot that I just came into. The other
Yeah.
half is what it comes out to, as in like feel free to share it to me privately or
Okay.
publicly, like so whatever goes for me. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good. I'll
Thanks, Alex.
yeah, let's catch up soon again.
Okay, sounds good. All
Okay.
right. Thanks for coming by. See ya.
Bye.